Okay, my name is Sabine Leskopf. I'm an immigrant and I'm running for the City Council for Samfylkingin, the Social Democrats.
Why should we urge our parents to vote for your party?
I think you shouldn't urge anyone to vote for anyone, but you should definitely talk to each other about things. So talk to your parents, and hopefully your parents will talk to you about politics. It's actually a huge problem that young people don't go voting. And I heard someone say that those kids who speak about politics at home with their parents, they're much more likely to go voting, have an interest. And I think, so yeah, just talk to them and tell them what you care about, and see whether you have some things in common there, or whether you want to discuss about stuff. But why should you vote for Samfylkingin? Because I think we're doing well. We've been in power here in the city for 4 years, and we've worked like a great team with the parties we're working together with, the Pirates and the Left Green and the Bright Future at the moment. At the same time, there have been, 3 or 4 governments in the country? So I think that says something, the way we work. And things are getting better. I think the city is more fun to live in and a better place. There's a lot of stuff that is difficult, that's not going too well, the housing situation and all that. But I think anyone who promises you a quick fix is not honest. And we're on the way. We're doing our best. The reason why I ended up with Samfylkingin is I'm an immigrant myself. I moved here as a grown-up person, so I didn't learn Icelandic before I was 30-something. And that's quite tricky. It's quite a challenge to do that, as you know from your parents. And I mean, you've been involved in this issue, so you know that. Samfylkingin is what we know usually as Social Democrats, and that's about it's about same opportunities for everyone. So that's the core of the policy of this party, is exactly what immigrant issues are about, that we get the same opportunities and our kids get the same opportunities. That's why I felt at home in this party from the start. It's about leaving no one outside of the society.
What is your plan to improve child welfare?
Whoa, child welfare is a big thing. I think one major issue is that we've been successful in a lot of things in Iceland, more successful in other countries. I think children here are much more involved in taking the decisions that concern themselves. We have these youth councils that we're working with in the city, and they're doing a great job. They're often coming with suggestions that we just let pass and put in action. I think education, proper education for all children, not just those who have rich parents, is the main thing. That they all have access to good schools, and that they have access to participate in leisure activities. There's a lot on offer. I think that's never the problem. But it's the problem is that many kids don't have access because courses are expensive. So we've increased the frístundakort, the leisure card. So we get more money to the parents that they can pay for courses and their kids can participate. I also think that it's more important that kids have access to sports that is not just based on, getting to the Olympics one day, but just participation and taking part and being there. We also work a lot and have put in place a lot of action plans and teams that are working on what we call the lost children. It's a weird term. I don't like the term itself. Maybe there's a better one in English. But I'm talking about those kids who have real huge problems, learning and coping and social problems. And the key to that is early prevention. So we catch those kids as early as possible. And for that, we want also to have school psychologists, all that kind of service more directly in the school, not in the local service centers or not in some healthcare facilities elsewhere. We want, the help that those kids need, or any kid. I mean, no child should be left alone with their problems. And we know a lot of kids have problems with anxiety I mean, there's social media, there's such a lot of pressure, there are things that are changing, that their parents, I mean, I have kids that age, and we parents sometimes feel quite helpless helping our kids cope with that pressure that they feel from social media and all that stuff. So a lot of kids need support with anxiety issues, and I think that's the key is to catch those kids as early as possible, so that the problems don't increase.
Children with another mother tongue have difficulties achieving good academic levels because of language difficulties and lack of support within the educational system. What is your plan to support them and their schools? Okay,
now I really need someone to keep track of the time, because that's my favorite. That's what I've been working for 4 years. And it's a huge task. And when I started in this whole issue many years ago, Icelanders didn't have knowledge to cope, to deal with kids with other mother tongues. They just didn't know what to do. We have a lot of knowledge now, but what we have done in the past 4 years, we have doubled the money that goes into Icelandic teaching to kids with other mother tongues, both in the preschool and in the primary school. We've introduced kind of a test that really helps us assess where each child stands in terms of the Icelandic knowledge. And then we can help properly, not just sometimes as a politician, you give money, but the money doesn't really go to the right place, so it's not really used properly. And that kind of, this helps us to use it properly. So Icelandic teaching, we have introduced a lot of more support to Móðurmál, to the mother tongue teaching, both giving support to this association, but also moving it into the school. So my idea is that Móðurmál, this association, will take care of all the kids at the age of up to 12 years, because they have really good people. And from then on, the school system should take over more. So kids like you could learn rather Arabic instead of Danish. I mean, Danish, I have nothing against Danish, but for you, it would be much more helpful if you could learn that, if you could have your mother tongue taught in school and get credit for it. And one other thing that we do is we have started hiring and want to do that more, so-called bridge builders. Bridge builders are people who they would speak Arabic and Icelandic, and they would have not necessarily be all teachers, but have some education in that field. And they would support those kids in the school, not just with their native languages or with the Icelandic. They would learn them in the other subjects, help them in the other subjects as well. Because if you only focus on learning Icelandic, what about maths? What about history? You need support in that as well. Otherwise, you'll finish primary school and don't have history and maths and all the other subjects. And they also, that's why they're called bridge builders, they are sort of a bridge between the school and the parents, because many parents of foreign origin, they don't know how to support their kids. They think, oh, I don't speak Icelandic enough, so there's nothing I can do. But that's not true. So we need that bridge between parents and the school, and that's something I want to do much more.
Many of us as teenagers live with their brothers and sisters within common and small rooms. Our parents cannot afford to pay the high prices charged on the rental market today. What is your plan to provide housing, and what is your vision to reduce the high rents?
Housing has been the biggest issue for the last 4 years, and it's the biggest issue in this campaign. So everyone every party will have some idea of what to do. What we have done, what we promised to do and have done, is to get 2,500 to 3,000 flats to start building. I mean, they're not all there yet, and it takes time. The problem was, of course, we had a financial crisis here in 2008. So for years and years, nothing was built, and it takes time to catch up. And it can't be fixed overnight. We're not promising that. But what we did was we were particular, these number of flats that I mentioned that we have started, they are going to rental companies, so on the rental market. And also to non-profit organizations, so to organizations that will not be able to raise the rents or the prices beyond measure, but have working on a non-profit basis. And that's what we've done a lot, particularly building student housing and people for young people who are at university. Just last week there were new plots assigned for that, for I think 260 flats, and that we need to do more. But we also need to make it easier for young people to buy their first flat, because most people still in Iceland they would rather buy than rent. Because that, of course, then you pay the money into your own pocket, not someone else's, and will not have to pay rent forever. So that's what we need to continue doing. And Reykjavik is the one community that really does something about social housing. I mean, we have 16 social apartments per 1,000 people. All the other communities or municipalities around us, they have like 5. So we have 3 times as much.
As young people, we cannot afford to rent even a small flat, and at the same time, we have to work to cover our education and living expenses. So many students in this situation have to give up their studies because of difficulties making ends meet and finding time to study. What is your vision to solve our problem?
That is definitely more student flats and helping young people to cope with the housing situation. And kids want to be independent. They don't want to live at home with their parents until they're 40. So yes, more student flats and available houses. But also, of course, we have to take care, of course, of those who are in low-paid jobs. I mean, that's very often young people who work at the same time as they study. They have low-paid jobs, and that's, of course, another side of the coin, why they have problems coping. But yeah, the housing market for young people is something that we're focusing on, definitely.
What is your plan to secure equality between Icelanders and foreigners, for instance, to equal pay and equal opportunities?
One thing is, of course, if you want to do about something, you have to know exactly the figures. And that's something we have done now, actually for the first time really properly, that we know how much the difference is, the wage gap between Icelandic staff at the city, because you always have to start home. I mean, take care of your own home, own your own, before you can go further. And we, of course, don't have impact on companies, how they pay. But we, of course, Reykjavik is the biggest employer here, so we have to look home first. And I think we can do better there, definitely. But at least we know how much it is, and the thing is, it's just about as much as the gender wage gap was when we started working on it. So we know how to do that. We managed to almost eliminate the gender wage gap at Reykjavik City for Reykjavik City employees. So we need to employ the same measures also to eliminate the wage gap that exists between Icelandic and foreign people for the same job, of course. But we also need to get better jobs available to immigrants. I'm working at the city and I don't see many immigrants in positions of responsibility. They only take the low wage jobs. There are no heads of departments or foreign origin. And I think that's something we really need to change, how we advertise jobs, what we demand for jobs. I mean, I still see job advertisements for something like gardening, and they are asking for some people who speak good Icelandic. How much good Icelandic do you need for gardening? I mean, you might need some basic, but they need to define that. How much do you really need? And then, of course, we need to improve the access that our staff has to Icelandic teaching. So if we do better for them, they can go up and get better wages.
Many foreign families find it difficult to understand the rules of society, their rights and responsibilities, and many of them have difficulties with integrating into society. Many feel isolated and left out. What is your plan to improve their living conditions and integration into society?
Well, that's another favorite. Information is, of course, the key. Many people come and they just don't know how things work. They might be very different from the countries where they came from. So, but the problem is so many things that are important for immigrants. They are not just the municipality. They're not just Reykjavik. They are the ministries and the central government. So what we need to do is get them together, and we've done that. We have a very good example. It's called Bjarkarlið. It's a information and support center for victims of violence, and there it worked. It was a miracle. It worked. The government, the ministries, the police, all the different institutions, they're in one place together. And that we need the same thing, this kind of one-stop shop for immigrants, where government and municipalities work together. And but also each and every one can help. I mean, if you're a parent and you notice that the parents of foreign origin in the class of your kids never show up, it's also their responsibility to take care. It's not just not just the government that can do a lot, and we can do a lot, but each and every one can also do a lot to help, making people feel welcome and taking care that they are not left outside of the society. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. I've actually been a parent's representative for my child, and I did exactly that. I noticed that some parents never showed up, and I said to the other ones, have you noticed? And they were all like, oh, really? No one had noticed. So just a little thing, just noticing they don't show up and just giving them a call, going home, checking on them, making sure their kids come to the facilities and have all the opportunities. That is good.
What is your plan to improve healthcare and welfare of our grandparents and the elderly people?
That's another thing where we need to first know a lot more about. Recently we have sort of a council of the elderly that we just installed, and they started working this term, and they are very interested in that. So they came to me and came to others and said, like, help us, tell us about, we don't know how people of foreign origin cope here when they're old. And we found out that they are not coping well because they don't have the same, they get less money because they don't have the same pension rights as people who've lived here all their lives. And if you come, it's better for those who come from European countries because the European Union has agreements. And so for me as a German, I should hopefully not lose my rights that I had in Germany. But for people who come from other countries, they will have huge problems getting their rights because their countries will not help. And they have, and the other point is many of them who have not learned the language, they're very isolated, and they totally depend on their family. But that's very often, it's very tricky to be old and poor and isolated. So that's definitely something we have to take care of.